Dear Dhamma friends, these are the direct words from the Buddha for the practicing people, specifically on the mindfulness on in-breath and out-breath. So up to yesterday, we discussed different perceptions or notions which are disturbing our mind, distorting our views and our understanding. So one can make use this corrected perception in two ways. One thing is to give a value for this mindfulness, or to come into this mindfulness, or to come into this mindfulness on in-breath and out-breath. One must have fair amount of correct understanding, correct perspectives, or correct perception or notion. Otherwise, there is no internal or inbuilt way of thinking to be mindful on your in-breath and out-breath. In our intrinsic nature, we are always outwardly. This is how we make ourselves busy, be concerned about the external world, external development, external creation, and that is the way evolution and our sansaric habits habituated us. So when someone to give a serious thought and come back to inwardly journey, that is mindfulness, and using one's own breath as the object of meditation, is a revolutionary thing. It's a very rarely happening. For that also, this corrected perception, corrected notions are very important. So we people are already taken up that challenge, and we know the mindfulness is the most important thing, at least at the beginning, and that is how we take our time away from these worldly matters permanently or temporary. And even though this very corrected perspective gave us a chance to come and take this residential retreat, still within the retreat we have to struggle to straighten further with respect to these perceptions, perspectives, notions. So mindfulness on breath is one of the very straightforward, short to the point meditation to sharpen along this correction of perception. Therefore, when and where someone is furthering, advancing along this mindfulness on the in-breath and out-breath, still, maybe for the second time, one has to reconsider again and again, reshape, reshuffle one's perspective. This is the second part of the practical value. So I thought of giving more emphasis towards that as far as we are taken up these 16 stages along the mindfulness on in-breath and out-breath. So there are 16 stages with respect to in-breath, 16 stages with respect to the out-breath. So altogether we can say 32 stages. And there are 4 tetrads. Very first 4 stages are concerned with the materiality, or we can say kaya anupassana, dwelling upon or contemplating upon the body or the materiality. And the next tetrad is with respect to the feelings, and the third one is with the mind, and fourth one is for Dhammanupassana, the rest of the whole thing which is relevant in this mindfulness journey. So as far as the first tetrad is concerned, that is what we kept it as the today's subject. And last time, last talk also, we were somewhat with mindfulness with in-breath and out-breath. So very first notion, the very first perception you must have is, you have to understand is our mind is always try to find all the objects in the permanent notion. That is how it becomes worthwhile to consider, it becomes worthwhile to get engaged with the object. So this is how we become happy to keep the rapport, keep the contact with the object, and that is how we expect external thing. Whatever we take interest, we think are permanent, going to give a lasting pleasure, so we select whatever the project going to give the lasting pleasure, that is under the notion that things are permanent. So same thing may work in a perverted way with respect to the in-breath and out-breath. So when and where someone, for example, uninstructed beginner, when and where try to see this breath, in-breath and the out-breath as an object of meditation, they have a mental figure, mental configuration and expectation. This must be the in-breath and this must be the out-breath. Like they make images according to what they have learned and what they have thought and their perceptions. So when and where that is not come up to one's own expectation, and further when and where this shape is going to change, naturally for someone to get upset, someone to give a wrong interpretation. So therefore first and foremost thing is anicca sanya. You must start mindfulness of the in-breath and out-breath with the perception of impermanence. So therefore in-breath is not equal to the out-breath, and for that you have to look into it very closely, very immediately, with full diligence and full precise aiming, and then only you can understand they have their own individual characteristics. And while it is continuing, still there may be a chance. Of course, in-breath and out-breath are two different things, but in-breath must be throughout like that without changing, but that also will be undermining if you are to observe in-breath to in-breath differences, out-breath to out-breath differences. So when and where they are evolving, they are changing, they are going through a metamorphosis, the permanent notion come and block you. So therefore if you repeatedly, if you are ready to accept any changes happens and to keep the mind open or be aware choicelessly, that is the way on the way while in service, how the impermanent notion is helping. And that is how long in-breath and out-breath can appear. If all the factors are conducive and supporting, it appears shorter. That indicates the mind is inwardly, is face to face with the in-breath and out-breath. Now you can see the amount of usage of oxygen itself is reduced in a sitting posture, and not only that, your mental work, not entertaining doubts, not agitated, instead ready to accept these changes. So therefore breathing can be soft, and when that happens, contrast to what we think, when and where it becomes subtle, they become very immediate. They are repeatedly appearing in front of you, or you can keep the in-breath and out-breath in view with, and there only you can see the beginning, the middle, the end. Like first and foremost you have to be friendly, first and foremost you have to be immediate with the breath, then only you can see the historical changes or chronological changes within in-breath. That is to say, the beginning part of the in-breath, the middle part of the in-breath, the end of the in-breath. That is not comparing with the out-breath, not comparing with the next in-breath, but within the in-breath itself, it is evolving, and that is the most quick, most flickering thing, if you are to focus the attention in an unwavering way, and you can see within that the very subtle start of the in-breath, ultimately gushing through your nostrils and giving a rub, and then ultimately ceases to exist completely before the out-breath start. And then the out-breath start very slow, very subtle, and early part, you may, if you are sharp enough, you may understand to up to a certain extent, then till it come up to a threshold value, you can't feel. But you know the process is happening, but you can't feel it, and then start rubbing sensation or gushing sensation. Then you can see, now I am in the out-breath, and feel it is gathering the momentum. And then the middle part, yes, you may feel, and towards the end, again, your feelings will be stopped, but the process will be going below the threshold level. So that is an invitation, that is a challenge, that is a task for yogi, for a person who is keeping the in-breath and out-breath face to face. If I am be prepared, more focused, more subtle, can I still feel the very subtle beginning of the in-breath and the very subtle cessation of the in-breath, very subtle beginning of the out-breath, very subtle cessation of the out-breath. So out of these two, the Buddha, he enumerates the beginning of in-breath and the beginning and the out-breath will be the next friend for you to observe. Because our mind is always happy to see the arising part, still it is not prepared to see the cessation part. Because that is the way we have trained our mind. Whatever arising, we are happy. We are ready to throw away birthday parties, but we never throw parties for the funerals. That is the way we have trained. And that is the way whenever you are inaugurations, we are inviting people, but whenever something demolished, it is negative. It is not welcome. So therefore the Buddha says, never mind. Till you develop this maturity, just see the beginning of the in-breath and see the beginning, end of the in-breath. So that is all, in absolute sense, the Buddha wanted us to do. See each and every in-breath and out-breath face to face, and when and where it is docile, when and where it is face to face, just focus the attention to the beginning of the in-breath, beginning of the out-breath, and through the middle, and beginning of the out-breath, through the middle, and when it is happening, the gap. What is the end of the in-breath? What is the end of the out-breath? That is somewhat bitter, somewhat unknown, somewhat uncertain, and only the adventurous mind, ready to go forward, they understand if there is a subtle beginning, there should have an end, and there also, without developing any kind of a nihilistic or destructive or any negative feeling, just observe the end of the in-breath and the end of the out-breath. And the teachers, later they found, the end of the in-breath is very short. It is more challenging to the yogi, but end of the out-breath, it's a lapse. There's a period is there, so you can go up to the point, you can perceive it. So now the matter, the in-breath and out-breath, the materiality called air, rubbing sensation and the sensitivity, feelings become very, very subtle. They become the important thing now, because to see the disappearing in-breath and out-breath, your focus is more now to the feeling side, and that is how more and more you are to focus this cessation part, in-breath and the out-breath. At least, if you are sharp enough to see the out-breath part, that very focus going to give a calming down or tranquilizing effect to your body, to the breath, and to your mind. So this area you may find, it must be such a calibration, such an alignment, Such a preparedness you must have to see the cessation part, and you must never disturb your equilibrium, just like a tightrope walking. Each and every out-breath, when it ceases to exist, you must be fully prepared to get each and every drop of, the last drop of the feelings, like you are a bird watcher and try to get the strange bird, all the movements into your camera, which will resolute camera to get all the details. Like as when it is happening, pasambayang kaya sankarang, the breath body, that is the body with the breathing, is calming down, so your mind can't entertain any doubt. No chance to wander off, no chance to entertain doubts, and there must be such a focus must be there. So this is the last episode towards the materiality. So when it is happening, you must be facilitating it, not entertaining doubts, not allowing your mind to fall into sleep, not get up and go, and not by force breathing. If you are not well prepared, what will happen is, when the breath becomes subtle, specifically with the out-breath, when you are following the subtlest part, you may find in order to have a sound and solid and established mindfulness, best thing is to have a gross breathing, so therefore tendency is there to force breathe. And each and everything appear your manipulations, sankhara. So therefore you must tighten your belts and let that thing happen without adding any kind of entertaining of doubts, without letting the mind fall into sleep, telling that is no object like. It is from have to not have, perceivable to unperceivable, known to unknown. So when such a thing happens, the mind is undergoing a evolution that you can say the conscious mind now learned highways or direct ways to unconscious. So when that happens, the fear, the uncertainty, the lack of adventurous feelings is possible. So therefore this is an acid test to see whether you are mentally balanced and physically balanced. If you have any kind of a mental or physical imbalance, you never go beyond this level. Because now your object, what you have appointed as the primary object, in front of you, under your very nose, from known to unknown changing is happen. Perceivable to unperceivable changes happen. So, if you are not well instructed, you may think this is disappearing is my mindfulness, disappearing is my concentration, and I am in chaos. What to do? Like a lot of doubts can happen. Or otherwise, if you are not sharp enough, not enough mobilizing your inquiring mind, sleepiness can happen. Or forced breathing can happen. The situation is slowly go beyond your control. So if you are not monitoring it properly, a lot of traps are there. So therefore that changing from materiality to feelings, when it is happening, you must be well instructed, well prepared, and you must have 1001 times before experiences, trial and error. Each time you do this so then jugglery and thing went distracted. So now you are prepared, and with your own trial and error, mistakes, the day you understand, at least to see the cessation of in-breath and out-breath, or in micro level, the cessation of out-breath, so then you can understand this is how the mind goes to the subconscious level, to the subtle points, and when you go there, you get lost because you can't communicate, you can't explain it. There are no characteristics, there are no limitations, there are no communication take place. So your communication system within your body or within your brain, left hemisphere and the right hemisphere, at your heart and the brain, everything undergoing a huge neurobics changes and reshuffling. So best thing is to not to fork fingers, but to monitor it in 1001 time, letting it happen, letting it unfold in a most natural way, and observe with the sharp mind, that is to say the thin slicing of time, and to be a neutral observer rather than doer. So therefore, the doing section of the meditation is now slowly gives rise to the happening section, and they are still feel like that you have to do something, that is not to do something. So therefore, in the language wise, you can put it, but you must understand, now onward, the meditation is no more a science. It is now becoming an art. It is ethical, the aesthetic thing. Let everything take place in its own accord. You are becoming more vigilant, more mindful, more diligent, and more immediate. And it is rather experience without a communication. It is like a dream happened to a blind person, and he can't communicate. But he is fully in the dream, and he understands, but can't communicate. Likewise, the moment that passambayam kaya sankarang, that your bodily activities come to the rock bottom level, your rational mind, your deductive knowledge, and your comparison, everything try their best to mess it up. This is the way your egoistic or your conceit or your desire to get the lion's share, they are trying their last drop of tricks. So you have to be very compassionate. You have to understand this is because of my past actions or lack of discipline. I have never refined the mind up to that level. So therefore, you have to be very patient, and then only you can go into the feeling sphere. And when and where such subtle things are happening, but still you are not sleepy, still you are not force breathing, still you are not entertaining doubts, and the opposite of the doubt is appearing. That is to say, you can understand the rapture or kind of a hilarious feeling, because now you are walking on a rope without falling this and that, and you learn how to gain the balance, or a young child learning how to walk with tottering with one leg and then to the changing to the other leg and to the other leg, like when it is happening, the opposite of doubt is bound to arise, never by ready-made, it is only by trial and error. So today's success, tomorrow will be utter failure. And even after the failure, if you are going to try, there may be some, out of ashes, new thing can happen. So likewise, the moment you try to feel, experience the rapture, it is not a gift, or it is not a complete endowment, unless otherwise you know how to monitor these perceptions. Different perception can happen. So when and where you learn it, you feel like hilarious. Now you know how to walk in a muddy place, how to walk in a tightrope, how to walk in a single foot bridge, or a child learn how to walk from the lying down position. So then onward, of course, need no any kind of encouragement, need no any kind of interviews. You feel like repeating it again and again. Only the disturbance may be your over-enthusiasm and overestimation considering now I know this, therefore when and where I try, the results must be there. That is the way of your calculation, your perception may be. But the Dhamma is a very profound thing. There is no assurance next time you are going to have it. So therefore again, next time also you have to start like a beginner. Next time also you have to understand the impermanent notion and selflessness, or no governability, no controlling power. If the things are aligned, this rapture can come. If the factors are, variable factors are distorted, power transmission never takes place, and you can understand no rapture can happen. The next thing that you are trying is how to maintain this rapture in a very skillful way, even though the breath is not there, even though there is no sign, you must maintain the mind without entertaining doubts. When it is happening only, the happiness, it is a precipitated feeling of the same rapture. When and where breathing takes place, sometimes it's very subtle. As Ajahn Brahm put it, it's a beautiful breathing. The breathing brings unalienable, unalloyed kind of a happiness. You are completely, totally cut off from the visual objects and the eye, totally cut off from the sounds and the ear, and the nose and the smell, taste and the taste buds, and even the bodily tactile sensation of the very breath. And that is the point, when and where you say goodbye to the external stimuli, as well as your faculties, here you comes the contentment, the unalienable kind of a feeling, unalloyed, nothing to add by itself, it is fulfilled, and you find you never thought that the breath can bring such a complete plate with the whole menu. And when it is happening, it says almost like you are in the Brahma sphere, going beyond the gods. Because this sukha, it's an alignment. It is not a materialistic one. It's a material has already ceases to exist, but the alignment is there. But the mindfulness is there. The concentration is there. So your mind is held in the air. No, you can't see any anchor. You can't see any reference point. And as far as there is a reference point, no sukha. As far as there is a label, the thing to label, mind is gross. When and where you surpass anything to be labeled, anything to recognize, then only this sukha can happen. So therefore you must have, right from the beginning, the spirituality as a part and parcel of your life. Otherwise you never believe. A materialist never believe. And the creator of God, who is believing the God, they think this is only matter for gods. Beyond this limit, so how can be me, a creature, can go up to that level? So therefore, whatever the perception, any distorted perception, even this happiness happen, you do not know how to cope up with. You do not know how to be prepared with it. Because mentally, in the mind, you always develop inferiority. Through inferiority only, you live the life. That is how the comparison happen. That is how the one-upmanship happen. That is how the inferiority and superiority, everything happen. So under such circumstances, even the happiness come into your home, you will shut the door and say, don't come now, come late. Otherwise, this sukha, the beautiful breathing, and the cessation part of the breath is always there. But you can't highlight it. You can't specialize it. You can't get plugged in it, with it. Because you always think, I am such a person. This is the way it must happen. So never the openness of the mind happen to go into these deep layers of the feelings. So it is not happening in an abrupt way. Slowly, these feelings become fully contented and getting the momentum by itself. So only the task you do is not to disturb it, not to add any turbulence to this unturbulent flow. So this is an art. This is an art. That is how we recognize the Taoism. That is what we call suchness of the mind. Let the mind to just take the status of the observer and let the phenomena go in by its own accord, and therefore there cannot be any traces of egotistic idea, at least temporarily. There cannot be any conceit that this is me, this is mine, this is myself, like. If it is so, this balance never can happen. And if you have any grasping idea, I must take it and put into the bag and seal it to bring home, never. Never this kind of thing happens. So therefore, there is a kind of a temporary deviation from the tanna, mana, ditthi, that is to say the desire, conceit and the egotistic. And of course it is not permanently weaker or absent. Temporarily you can see. Under such circumstances, the Buddha says, Chitta sankhara patisangvedi asasisamiti sikkati. You find the whole your life, whole your being, nothing but feelings and perception. So for the first time you understand, under the carpet, beyond the materialistic world, our brain, the mental body or subtle body is nothing but the feelings and the perception, and they can make anything. They are like magical powers, and the perception and feelings, Vedana and Sanya, and you can see, you don't know whether you are in a dream world or reality, whether it's a concept or reality. Now things are in a like half dream, and when the object or the in-breath and out-breath ceases to exist, and you try to feel the balance, the mind-made projections, visual things, sounds, really some people feel smells, some reported rare occasion of taste, and different body shapes going to happen. So when it is happening, you can understand things have taken their own accord and showing mental images or sounds or shapes, and when it is happening, you don't know whether it is coming outside. For example, when you feel heat in your shoulder, you don't know whether it is sunny outside or it is created by yourself. And sometimes heat bubbles, sometimes cool bubbles, sometimes pins, sometimes crawling animals, sometimes raindrops, sometimes sand dropping like. Many things are happening in the body, and visually also the darkness, different lights, different shapes can appear. Sound-wise, sometimes you start to feel the sound of silence, that means the creaky sound, or sometimes you feel when you are observing, even though you are here, you can clearly listen to far distant sounds, and they are two different layers, like sounds are there, totally undisturbed, and you don't know whether that sound is a man-made or my mind-made. You don't know. So when that happens, you understand for the first time, if you are going to recognize this each and every time, recognition means you are losing that very moment to see what is happening. You are recognizing what you have cognized. Recognition means mind-made thing. Each time you are going to employ your mind for recognition, you are no more ready for the next thought moment. you are blind to the next thought moment. You are like ruminants. They are regurgitating and chewing the cud. Exactly the same thing. The mind is making something here and there and going to contemplate, going to recognize, going to reify every time you are absent to the present moment. So this is how you are going to give very subtle permanent notion to this passing show. The passing show, this one facet never appears twice. It is so in flux. But our mind try to pick this and that according to my likings and disliking, according to my personality. I think this is very important, I must report it. Like mind is picking this and that. Each time you are recognizing, you are trying to wait a recognition, the next moment, the fresh moment appearing is gone forever. When Jnanaponika is mentioning it, if you are dynamic and if you are ready to let go and observe it, your rejuvenation takes place. Moment you recognize, moment you reify, senility takes place. So this is how we embrace our old age, sickness and the death. If you are ready to things happen in its own accord and take the status of a observer, you find there is nothing to recognize. Things are happening in completely its own accord. But then who am I? What is my duty? Everything appears to be quite a personal question. But each and every time you are going to contemplate, each and every time you are going to rationalize it and deductive thinking, you miss the bus to see the flux called the mind. So when the mind is taking place, or everything is happening in a very changing nature, it is really recharging yourself. And when and where mind activities are going, and you try to get a distance and observe it, that's the best thing. You can calm down the mental status. Mental activities, that is called pasambana, and many Burmese teachers say this is the healing point. When and where mental activity is happening, you get a ticket to see it as it is, and if you are not measuring, if you are not judging, if you are not assuming when it is happening, then the mind activity is going to calm down, passambayan chitta sankaran, and this passambanaya, that calming down, tranquilizing it is not the tranquilizing them now body, but the mind. This is the healing power, this is the curing nature of the mind. Instead, if you are going to entertain doubts, or if you are absent to the situation and recognizing and reifying and try to pick this and that, each and every time mind become partial, mind become not complete, not contented, but no one is ready, no one is up to the mark to keep the mind as such and to observe it. Moment you learn the art, how to put the machine into autopiloting and to observe it, for the second time also you are denying egotistic idea, you are denying the conceit, you are denying the desire, going for the better half or lion's share, nothing, you just allow it to happen. That is how passamba and chitta sankaran can happen. That means exactly like the body, when the object becomes subtler and subtler, if you facilitating it, never allow the mind to fall into sleep, never entertain doubt, never go for force breathing. Exactly the way when the mind calms down, you can see these feelings and the perceptions are calming down as if no fertilizer, as if no food. And then passambayan chitta sankara. For the first time you can see, even though it is not under your control, even though it is not your agenda, you know how to not to fertilize it, you know how to not to feed it, but don't think that you must be lethargic. You must be fully vigilant, you must be fully diligent, you must be fully mindful to see this, and this is when it is happening. Observing the mind, it says that you understand another kind of a balancing in the world. So far what I was doing, I was walking fingers to other psychologies and meddling with the materiality and thinking about the creativity, thinking about the productivity. Each and every time what I did was fighting with nature, fighting with other psychologies, and fighting with my likings and disliking. Now for the first time, you know they are working completely in the cause and effect relationship. I withdraw myself, and when that is happening, you know the self-love, how to love yourself, and the gladdening of the mind, abhippamodayan chittang, and the mind go into the very deep layers of the contentment, and it is impossible with these visual objects, different sounds, different smells, different tastes, and different luxuries. This is the point where abhippamodayan chittang, mind understand, by doing nothing, you gain the complete thing. So this is completely religious, completely spiritual thing, but you would have lost it 1,001 times because of your result orientation or opportunist kind of ideas or lack of energy. So therefore, whenever you comes to know this abhippamodayan chitta, the gladdening, it is not that you are doing. Whenever the meditation come up to this maturity, you just recognize or understand this is what it happens when and where, when you put the machine into the autopiloting, this is how things are getting balanced and governed, and you are to just sit in a comfortable chair and observe what is happening. So when it is happening, there may be very subtle fine-tuning. Sometimes the faith factor increases, more and more you become faithful, it undermines the wisdom. If the energy aspect too much, it will undermine the concentration. If the concentration becomes too much, you will be lethargic and fall into sleep. If the wisdom is going to the more and more rational thinking and deductive thinking going to have, very lucratively it is happening, but your faith will go down thinking, I am the person discovered this, and therefore it is me, it is mine. The Buddha is almost like my classmate, he also did the same, I am also the same. So that is the way it happens. So that is because the inquiring mind is too much and the faith gone away, and that is overestimation can happen. So and that level, there are a lot of defilements, perversions and distortions can take place. So always you have to be humble and take the status of a neutral observer, and when you are observing, it is called the understanding the then and there concentration. That's called momentary concentration. That concentration is somewhat different from the samatha samadhi or conventional concentration. Here you have to do fine tuning to entertain the unhindered development. So there your alertness you never can give up. Not like an absorption after the determination go and live in 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes like in a jhanic experience. This is not so. This is very dynamic one. Under your very nose, you are ready to do all the fine tuning, and when and where all the faculties, that is to say the faith, the energy, mindfulness, concentration and wisdom, when everyone focus to the single task of balancing, then you feel it is almost like vipassana jhana or jhanic absorption. You know it is the sum total of 5 is something more than the individual values. You get a kind of a balance in the samadhang chittang, and then you understand this concentration you can't do soon you sit. You have to let the other things develop and come up to the level, then only you can adjust it. And when you are adjusting, the very experience is almost like you are in a jhana, but the theoretically or in the philosophically they are fighting the concentration, the samatha concentration and the vipassana concentration. Vipassana concentration is a very dynamic one. Then and there you have to take responsibility, and fine tunings are there, and then liberating mind, you can understand is something possible. Something possible in this very life, because you have permanent notion outside, so much so you can't experience this. So you have to develop sabba sankharesu anicca sanya, anabhirata sanya, not to get delight in the worldly matters, not to get delight in the worldly business, and they must be reduced to the utility value. Never for luxuries, never for consumerization. And consumerization and luxury is a kind of an addiction. You don't know how to say enough. Ever chasing. As far as you have that bad habit, you are losing this balance. So therefore, sabba loke anabhirata sanya, sabba sankharesu anicca sanya, even then your habitual dispositions and your creative thinking and adjusting, everything come up. There you have to have sabba sankharesu anicca sanya, attiyati harayati jigucchati, you look them as the repulsive and you never entertain them. Consider this as the utter suffering you are creating out of this such a balance, and the liberation mind. Oh, it is possible in this very life. For the first time you can happen, but still a beacon light. It is not a complete dark, complete light, but possibilities are going to happen. This is happening at the mental level or chittanupassana level, and that is the third tetrad. And once that everything qualified and prepared, aniccanupassi, for the first time you understand your notion, your perception of anicca is somewhat tangible, somewhat you can realize it. Everything is changing. That changing nature is permanent. Things are changing, but the changing nature is permanent. So you have something reference point, everything is changing. So that notion becomes so solidified, so precipitating, you understand accepting that is not nihilistic. Accepting that is not destructive. Accepting that is not inferiority. This is how you can maintain the already earned balance. Aniccanupassi asasi samiti sikkati, aniccanupassi pasasi samiti sikkati. When and where you see in and out and materiality and mentality, and when and where you accept this changing nature, you can't make future projections. No planning. So each and every plan, each and every lucrative, everything is start to fade away. You can do, but no much of motivation can come, because you know you are planning with something fragile. You are planning with something not solid or rotten. Out of this rotten thing, what you can plan? So even everything, even your mind is habitually planning, the attraction to that, claiming that I plan, this is my brainchild and kind of thing. Instead you find it is something happening, it's fading off slowly. When it is happening, you yourself feel it. If you are overreacting only, you feel you may go to the self-mortification, not to eat, not to clean your body, and torturing your body can happen. But mindfulness, if the mindfulness is intact, you may see this is the way the internal evolution of the mind is taking place. So therefore this fading of thing make you more and more lively, vigilant and diligent in this very moment. You are fading off to the future and the past. But the present moment is very vivid. It's very dynamic. It's a flux. It is flickering. And it's like a welding lamp. It's happening. So therefore, if you can maintain it, what is the use for planning for the future? What is the use of regretting about the past? Because present moment is there. So therefore, this fading off is not a inferior thing or defeat, because it is well grounded in the present moment, and the present moment is really dynamic. Under such circumstances only that fading off appear positive, fading off appear creative, fading off appear very bold. And when it is happening, you see everything ceases to exist. That means again and again you can see cessation of out-breath, good, than the beginning of the out-breath. And cessation of anything is nothing you have to spend any mental inputs, physical input. It is always programmed. So when and where you to see cessation part of the phenomena, you find only a mature mind can do it. So not by mere recitation, not by mere will or wish you can do it. Other factors right down must be come out to the maturity, and then you put this null hypothesis. Then not this null hypothesis come into being, this cessation is already in the system. Even though you develop phobia, even though you develop uncertainty, even though you feel fear, it is part and parcel. And when and where you ready, good enough to observe it, repeatedly it is being proved. Repeatedly it is being proved with this mental phenomena or physical phenomena. So you can bear it up as if a mother see her own child died. Just like in Kisagotami, that is the only child gave the whole life for that lady because she is so thin. The husband's side, everyone told she is infertile. And everyone outcasted her. But one day she conceived and she was so happy because she was living with the husband's family members, and luckily it was a baby, boy baby, and one day a serpent came and bit on the cheek and died. And she can't think about any life because that baby was the everything for her. And therefore she was going by meeting each and every person asking, can you heal this and cure this, and this is my only treasure. So no one can say no because she was so desperate. But a wise person told, there is a physician, why don't you go and meet and give the direction to the Buddha? And then the Buddha told, okay, I can cure it, but you have to have some local herbal medicine. Would you go to and bring me some handful of sesame seeds? And she told, if the sesame can do that miracle, why not? I can bring gunny bags loads of sesame. And she jumped, and on the way Buddha says, please get me some sesame seed from a house where no one experienced any kind of a death. She told, that is not a matter. And she went there and everyone was happy to give the sesame seed. Then have anyone died in your family? Oh yes, of course. Then it is not qualified. She went to the next house, and again everywhere she found that death is common. every household, every person is talking about the death. Then only she was happy to give up the child and went to the Buddha and told Bhante, don't worry about the healing and curing of the child, please treat me. Then she was prepared to understand this is a natural phenomena. If anything has any kind of arising nature, it has a cessation. It is not a personal hit to you. It is not the lack of the discipline or a lack of moral control in you. It is not any other thing. This is the world. So you are the one make it so big and talking and brooding and making so much of fuss and the frustration, because you are not ready to understand everything has this cessation as the nature. This is how you the relinquishment from all the sankhara, all the things are happening, going to happen. So therefore, as I tried to indicate yesterday also, keeping the view with the breath is a panacea for everything. But many, even in Sri Lanka, that being traditional Buddhist country, many people think, if I am to be a meditator, I must know all the 40 subjects written in the book. So therefore, Bhante, why don't you teach us the other 39? Why you are always talking only the Anapanasati? That is a ever question. Because they wanted to learn all the tactics, but never penetrate into one. And the next thing is, Anapanasati is a subtle object. And when the Mahasi Sayadaw introducing the rising and falling, because that in a breath there are two little waves, in rising and falling, single high peak wave, only one wave. So therefore, even if you miss the in-breath and out-breath, you can't miss the rising and falling the abdomen. So that is how that came into being. But therefore, in-breath and out-breath is subtle. But each and every moment you are live with in-breath and out-breath, you are naturally healing. You are naturally in the cessation, but it is not very attractive thing. More and more you try to be with the breath, that different perception come and hit you and lead you to entertaining doubts. When there is no entertaining doubts, falling into sleep. And the third aspect is, you never let the natural breathing to take place. You try to force, to enhance your results. This is the way all the things are, even though it is physically manifested, is backed by a wrong notion, backed by a wrong perception. So therefore it is not a personal mistake of you. But if you can corner, if you can limit, if you can recognize, if you can diagnose the particular perception, then you can understand exactly just like you are in front of the Buddha. Just like the Buddha out of his magical eye, he see and point out. Likewise, when you are doing Anapanasati, you have to reshuffle again and again all these kind of perceptions, and then you can see they have many different shapes and manners to come and disturb you. That is why at the beginning you have to have a theoretical understanding, listening and reading, and then when they are manifesting, don't rush to have a quick answers, apply again and again, and there you have to face the situation with your theoretical understanding. One day, before long, you can verify it, you can live up to that, then only you understand this changing of sanya, chitta, ditthi, gradual development. The very first thing is sanya level. The Buddha says, by teaching and preaching, you can give a consideration for sanya level. When it is consolidated to the wrong chitta level, you become slowly incurable disease, incurable patient. You are so solid in that your notion, Buddha may be, but others can't. But if it is developed up to the view, even the Buddha can't. So therefore, if you can understand at the perception level, you are so lucky. But only you have to understand. Your neighbor can't. You can't do for your children. You can't do for your parents. So when your understanding is so unique to you, so therefore, before Anapana, while doing Anapana, both the places, this understanding the correct perception is very important. And if that is happening, the Anapana, just like the other objects, it will be a very fairly conspicuous object. And many complain Anapana is not so prominent, not so conspicuous, because they are full of misperception. So that is why after removing 9 kind of misperception, only the Buddha present Anapanasati. So then when Buddha asked Venerable Ananda, you go and pass the message to Venerable Girimananda, and when he is understand it, I am sure he will be cured. And Venerable Ananda then study under the foot of the Buddha, and then go to the Venerable Girimananda, and while it is giving, it appear like by listening to Girimananda Sutta, Venerable Girimananda is recovering. But the thing was, Venerable Girimananda was quite familiar with these things. And this is just a reminder, why reminding only the healing powers and curing powers came, because he has already taken preventive action. So therefore, anyone practicing a retreat like that without much of physical and mental diseases, they take preventive action. But when and where the physical and mental ailment happen, either you or someone come and remind you, don't worry, bring the attention to the mindfulness. That is called satuppada, recalling your mindfulness, and the moment you come up to the correct alignment, the healing power going to happen very quick way. It is, Buddha says, happening in very fast manner. So that is why it says, before getting into old age, sickness and the death, develop these qualities and wait, because each and everyone is aging. Each and everyone is going to hit with the disease and the death. So therefore, if you have any kind of compassion or loving kindness to oneself, don't postpone it, telling, I have no time, or I have no proper teacher, I have no proper meditation center, I have no proper discussions. All these are nothing but the escapism and explanation. It won't work. While working, the Dhamma is there for you to give a reconsideration and enough chances for you to do while you are running the mindfulness on the in-breath and out-breath. So therefore, those who wish preventive as well as the healing, both this Anapanasati is, you can recommend without any hesitation. Come and see Eva Balava or Ehipassika. So this is very straightforward message. So not only that you individually practice it, the way you are going to live your life, exemplified life, will be a silent sermon for the other people seeking healing, and you will be given both healing and the prevention, and that way may that the message of the Buddha go across the world. With that wish, I would like to sum up today's talk. Thank you very much for listening.